So this is Emily Crutcher. I am doing a StoryCorps interview today with Bev Motich, and she is going to answer some of our general questions. So thank you, Bev, for agreeing to be interviewed.
Sure.
My first question for you, if you'd like to tell us, what are you proudest of in your life?
Well, obviously, anyone who knows me knows that I'm very proud of my daughter. She's going through a lot of struggles right now, and she's working very hard to rise above a lot of obstructions in her life. And I know she's going to get through it, and things will be fine. Um, my stepson and his family, particularly my daughter-in-law, checks in with me every week, it seems, during this COVID-19 crisis. So that's something that, I relish that bond that we all have together. But aside from family, I think I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of my own ability to maintain an independent life that is somewhat meaningful. It's meaningful to me, and I think I make a difference to some of the other people that I come in contact um, with a variety of things that I do to keep myself busy. And I like that I live in woods, and I have a property of flowers and pets and things like that keep me occupied. And I love my little town I live in. So there are a lot of things that are part of my life that I've deliberately put there and kept there. And I think um, I'm very lucky that I have choices like that to make. And I'm pretty proud of how I've managed to make it through all these years.
Yeah. Speaking of being lucky, can you tell us what you're most grateful for in your life?
Um, I had a very fulfilling career with the government. Surprisingly, I worked for the Department of the Navy for 37 years, and the thing I loved about government work was that it was constantly changing. I worked in information technology, so I've worked on very early computers,
Hmm.
and when that got to be a little boring because you program one computer, you can program several. Um, I was given the opportunity to get into training, so I started teaching other people to do what I knew how to do, and that made it much more interesting because aside from the technology, which was cool and kind of neat, I liked connecting with people. So that was something that kind of filled out my time with the government, and got me launched into several other things, which was to study for a master's degree and in electronic commerce and qualify for an adjunct position to teach. So I worked for the government during the day, and then I would go teach night courses at Messiah College, which is near my home. And that ended up being sort of a plan B career after I retired from the government. I've been doing the Messiah stuff for 20 years. And that's kept me going. Now I don't need to go to work every day, all day long. Obviously, nobody's going out to work right now, but um, in my retirement, so to speak, I'm still actively involved in learning new technologies and working with other people, and that's been something that's kept me growing. In the I'd say also, in the years since I retired from the government, which has been about 8 years now, I think, I've been able to spend more time volunteering. So with UUCV, I've gotten into some great opportunities with the choir, which was a challenge for me and something that I'm still working on. David and I do wonderful duets on Sunday mornings when he sings and I sing along. Um, and worship associates is really important to me at church. Um, and also, I've been on the board and dealt with finance and some things like that. And I like being able to shape kind of what goes on and what goes into the community and be part of that. So it's a really gratifying type of work to do.
Excellent. Well, what are some of the life lessons that you've learned so far that you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's interesting when, I was very involved in my government career and I worried about, what will I do if I ever leave my job? I was, completely involved in that. And then I decided to retire when my daughter still had 1 year left of college so that I could at least be, quote, home with her for 1 year of her school, since I worked most of the time since she had been born. My husband pretty much was the stay-at-home parent and did the homeschooling and did a lot of work with her on her education. So I was able to spend some time um, outside, once I retired. And I realized at that point that you need to always have something that you're working toward, some type of goal, whether it's a big goal or a small goal. It might be cleaning out the garage. It might be achieving a next higher level of performance or supervision in a job that you have. It can be something big. It can be something small. But especially in this time of being kind of shut down from other activities, you need to have little things that you can work towards. So I'm always looking for a goal that I can try to work toward. And because I'm involved in academia, I'm always looking ahead to the next semester, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to plan, like 6 months ahead what we're going to be doing. And so it gives me some type of a future perspective. I found lately that one of the hardest things about growing old is that you don't know how much time you have left. So I think you just have to find a way to make every day count and keep challenging yourself and making, your daily activities something that are stimulating for you. So that's my clue is always have something that you're working toward.
Yeah, I think that's an especially good lesson for us right now, like you
Right.
said, is having things we're looking forward to and working on and trying to keep progressing even as it feels like we're stagnant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's true.
Well, this is our Memorial Day weekend, so this question might be especially appropriate. How would you like to be remembered?
Well, um, I was very lucky. At one point in my job, I got the opportunity to apply for a completely different position. We were starting up an intern recruitment center, and I became the head of that particular initiative. And so I was able to go out to college campuses and do job fairs and pick people up and bring them into the government. I worked in human resources to be able to hire them, figure out the right way to hire them. And so I did some training and some initial work with these interns, and I found that being able to kind of launch somebody on their career was really rewarding. And I'm still in touch with a lot of these people, have seen them grow into supervision and leadership and all of those things. And um, I guess that's kind of my legacy of what I did when I worked for the government. I carried that over to UUCV when I was asked to be part of Cindy Trelazzo's intern committee, and got to work with her and kind of coach her through some things with the other people on the committee. And that felt really good and really rewarding. I think being able to pass things on to, a younger generation or a new group of people who take things over after you're gone is a great way to make a difference.
Yeah, I think being a teacher or a mentor is a special gift that not everyone has. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yep.
You already touched on this a bit with talking about your involvement with UUCV, but can you tell us why being a UU matters to you?
Was introduced to UUs as a teenager. Um, my very cool stepmother took me to her church in Devon, PA, and we got to do. I think at that time we called it LRE, Lifetime Religious Ed, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and we would study Buddha and do various things like that, that I thought was interesting and different. And so I already knew the principles and the basic philosophy at that point in time. And then I took a gap, I went to college, etc. Um, and didn't have a church for many, many years. I actually was married the first time in a UU church, but then that marriage didn't last very long, and I didn't have a church for many years until I heard about UUCV forming and buying a building. It was actually, my story is that Bobby Bassett at a craft show told me, at Foundry Day actually, uh,
Oh,
told me about the church because my husband was a crafts person, and we always did a lot of shows together and things like that. And so she told me that we had that they had just bought the building, and I think that was in June. That would have been early June. So probably the next week, I came to the first service at UUCV in the building, and been there ever since. So that's been 20 some years. Um, and I liked, I immediately knew that I quote agreed with the basic principles of UU's, um, and I liked the people at UUCV. I liked being able to be part of a community that I could rely on, that shared my values in many, many cases. Um, I like that there's a lot of people who are involved in education and academics there that I can talk to about things. um, the conversations are interesting. The sermons are interesting to me, especially since Reverend Aya has been there. I remember an early conversation I had with her right in the beginning that, I said something to her that, she has just the right words to put things into perspective for me. And she said, well, maybe you're just ready to listen to what I have to say now, and so that struck home with me, that this was a point in my life where I really needed this community. And um, I think it's a group of people that I can rely on for anything. I have a small group I'm very close to. We do a lot of things together. We're still meeting twice a month in our Zoom environment. And I'm going to be part of Worship Associates again, and I love doing that. I love shaping worship and working with the other people on the team. Hopefully, to get back to choir someday, if we can figure out a way to do that. And I know I can count on the people in this church, and I will always try to give back any way I can to trying to make it a thriving community. I love welcoming new people into the church and seeing it grow. And so that's why it matters to me.
wonderful. Well, I learned some new things about you, Bev, during this interview. So thank you so
Great.
much about sharing your stories with us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.